People will only become better when you show them how they are. We humans have a certain nature that exists from birth. We are more or less slaves to it. However, through practice, it can be transformed into something positive. In this video, we will introduce you to the laws of human nature. Understand that each of us operates according to these laws. By being aware of them, we gain a different perception of ourselves and others, and will be able to live a more fulfilling and easier life. We will be able to understand others better and build more empathetic and understanding relationships. So let's dive in. 1. The Law of Irrationality. We often view ourselves as rational beings, believing our decisions are based on logic. However, much of our behavior is driven by emotions, often without us realizing it. Stoicism teaches that while rationality may seem elusive, it can be cultivated through practice and self-awareness. The first step to mastering our emotions is recognizing the biases that cloud our judgment. Confirmation bias leads us to seek information that supports what we already believe. For example, if someone believes in a particular political ideology, they may only read news sources that affirm their views. Conviction bias makes us overconfident in our beliefs, regardless of contradictory evidence. A person convinced of their superiority might ignore advice, thinking they are always right. Appearance bias causes us to judge based on looks, like hiring someone solely because they look professional, even if their skills don't match. Group bias limits independent thinking, as seen when we follow trends or make decisions based on group consensus, fearing exclusion. Blame bias makes it easier to shift responsibility to others, while superiority bias leads to overconfidence, often resulting in reckless decisions. Emotions are further heightened by specific triggers, such as past trauma, sudden gains or losses, or pressure from others. For example, a sudden job loss can trigger fear and impulsive decisions, like taking a less suitable job just to feel secure again. Recognizing these inflaming factors helps us manage our emotions more effectively. To bring out your rational self, self-awareness is key. You must understand your emotions, pause before reacting, and balance emotional responses with logic. Accept people and situations as they are without letting emotions cloud your judgment. Rationality is not about suppressing feelings, but about understanding and controlling them. For instance, before making a major financial decision, taking time to evaluate the situation without emotional pressure can lead to better outcomes. By mastering your emotional self, you will act more clearly and in alignment with your long-term goals. Rationality is a practice one that brings clarity and helps you navigate life with better judgment, ultimately leading to more thoughtful decisions and actions. 2. The Law of Narcissism. We are all narcissists to some extent. While some of us function well within our self-absorption, others dive deep into it, becoming what we call deep narcissists. It's important to acknowledge that narcissism, in its many forms, is an inherent part of human nature. From childhood, our self-esteem is built around how we see ourselves and how we believe others perceive us. However, our self-absorption doesn't have to lead to destructive behavior. By embracing and understanding our narcissism, we can transform it into something powerful: empathy. Deep narcissists never take responsibility for their actions. They live in a world where everything revolves around them, making them defensive and angry when criticized. These individuals can appear in many forms, from leaders obsessed with control to those who use charm and theatricality to manipulate others. Their inability to self-reflect or consider the feelings of others makes them dangerous in relationships. But not all narcissists fall into this deep category. Functional narcissists can channel their self-focus into productive outcomes, whether in their careers or their personal relationships. They are aware of their tendencies but find ways to turn their self-love outward. The key to overcoming the negative aspects of narcissism lies in developing empathy. Empathy allows us to shift our focus from ourselves to others, understanding their emotions, motivations, and actions. To do this, we must start by observing people without judgment. Rather than categorizing them or thinking we know who they are, we must study their behavior, collect information, and analyze their emotions deeply. Through this process, we become more attuned to others, making us better friends, partners, and leaders. But empathy is not an inherent gift. It requires practice. Ask for feedback, reflect on your interactions, and continuously strive to connect with those around you on an emotional level. The journey from narcissism to empathy is a gradual one, but it leads to healthier relationships and a clearer understanding of ourselves and others. Narcissism, when unchecked, can lead to isolation and toxicity. However, when we consciously direct our self-love outward and use it as a tool to build connections, we become what Stoic philosophy calls healthy narcissists. These individuals understand that while self-awareness is crucial, true fulfillment comes from empathy and emotional intelligence. By focusing on others, we do not lose ourselves, but rather we expand our capacity for love and connection. 3. The law of role-playing. In today's world, every one of us is playing a role, whether we realize it or not. We wear invisible masks shaped by societal expectations and our need to protect ourselves. On the surface, we all appear confident, kind, and likable. But does this really reflect who we are on the inside? Why do we feel the need to present a perfect image, concealing our flaws, negative emotions, and less noble intentions? These masks don't just protect us from social harm, but also shield our inner selves from judgment. However, if we rely solely on appearances, can we truly understand someone, or are we simply deceived by their polished exterior? Since ancient times, people have recognized the importance of playing roles and wearing masks to adapt to society. In every interaction, whether it's with friends, colleagues, or business partners, we carefully choose how to present ourselves to make the best impression. Yet this leads to a significant challenge. We can't always see someone's true nature, nor do we fully understand our own. In a world where everyone is performing, how can we tell what's real and what's fake? This is a critical question everyone should reflect on, because only when we're aware of this can we avoid being blinded by appearances. Our true nature often slips through in subtle nonverbal cues: averted eyes, a sudden shrug, or a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. These are the moments when the mask momentarily falls away, revealing the person underneath. We need to learn to read these signs carefully to see through the masks others wear. For example, during a job interview, a candidate might try to appear confident and energetic, but if you observe closely, you might notice subtle signs of nervousness hiding beneath their polished exterior. These signals, whether intentional or not, often reveal more about someone's true character than their words or outward appearance. Being able to recognize these nonverbal cues not only helps you distinguish between the authentic and the fake, but also allows you to build more genuine, meaningful relationships. Don't let yourself be fooled by the images people create. Focus on observing more closely, decoding the small gestures that carry the most weight in revealing someone's true self. This awareness will help you avoid misunderstandings or deception and bring you closer to the truth. Are you perceptive enough to see through the masks around you? Start by paying attention to the details in your everyday interactions, from the smallest facial expressions to unspoken actions. Only then can you truly understand others, as well as yourself. People wear masks to protect themselves, but once you learn to look beyond them, you'll discover a world rich with depth and complexity, where the smallest gestures can speak volumes. Be prepared to face the reality of human nature, because that's the only way to build a life that's authentic and meaningful. 4. The Law of Compulsive Behavior. Imagine repeating the same negative behaviors over and over again, even though you know they are harmful. You're aware of the pattern, yet you feel powerless to stop it. This is a common experience for many of us, and it has deep roots in our childhood. From the very beginning of our lives, our character is shaped by our early experiences, habits, and attachment styles. These patterns become ingrained, stamped into our psyche, influencing our actions long into adulthood. This is why we often find ourselves trapped in cycles of behavior we know are destructive, yet struggle to break free from. From a Stoic perspective, understanding the source of these behaviors is key to overcoming them. Our compulsive actions are not random, they are the result of deeply embedded traits that we developed over time. These traits, often formed during our formative years, are difficult to alter but not impossible. By recognizing our negative patterns, we can begin the process of change. It starts with self-awareness, understanding how our character has been formed and how it manifests in our behavior. With this awareness comes the ability to transform toxic traits into something positive, something that serves us rather than holds us back. But it's not enough to simply understand our own character. In a world full of different personalities, it's crucial to develop the skill of reading the character of others. Look closely at how people respond to adversity, how they treat others, and their capacity for patience and growth. Through these patterns, their true nature is revealed. In doing so, you will also learn to recognize toxic types: the hyper-perfectionist, the relentless rebel, the drama magnet, and others whose patterns are damaging to themselves and those around them. These individuals repeat the same behaviors, trapped in their own cycles of compulsion, unable to change without first recognizing the source of their suffering. The key to breaking free from your own compulsive behaviors lies in altering your character, one step at a time. It's a process that requires self-discipline, reflection, and a desire for self-improvement. It means transforming your weaknesses into strengths, redirecting negative patterns toward positive outcomes. For example, a hyper-perfectionist might channel their obsessive attention to detail into productive pursuits, while a relentless rebel might learn to harness their independence in a way that serves both themselves and others. In the end, the Stoic message is clear: you are not a prisoner of your past or your ingrained habits. By understanding the strength of your own character and recognizing the toxic patterns in others, you can break free from destructive cycles. The power lies within you to change, to grow, and to live a life in accordance with reason and virtue. Are you ready to take control and alter the course of your behavior, or will you remain trapped in the patterns of your past? The choice, as always, is yours. 5. The Law of Covetousness. Human nature draws us to the unattainable. What we cannot have seems infinitely more desirable. This is the essence of the law of covetousness. The absence of something stirs our imagination, creating a yearning that fades once it is within reach. We idealize the things we lack, only to realize that, up close, they often disappoint. This cycle reflects a key principle in Stoicism: we must not be ruled by desire, but rather understand its fleeting nature. To harness this law, one must become an elusive object of desire. Scarcity breeds interest. By knowing when to withdraw or create a sense of mystery, you amplify others' curiosity and admiration. Whether in relationships or professional settings, being constantly available dilutes your value. By cultivating distance and unpredictability, you increase your allure. However, the true mastery of this law lies not just in influencing others, but in mastering oneself. Instead of endlessly chasing external desires, focus on inner growth and contentment. As Stoicism teaches, fulfillment comes not from possessions or status, but from self-improvement and inner peace. By becoming content with what you have, you liberate yourself from the cycle of endless want, achieving far more through self-discipline than by pursuing illusions. Ultimately, the law of covetousness reminds us that desire is powerful but fleeting. By controlling both your own desires and the perceptions of others, you can turn this law into a tool for personal empowerment, mastering both life and relationships. 6. The Law of Shortsightedness. We often find ourselves drawn to the immediate, reacting impulsively to what is right in front of us. This tendency is what the Stoics refer to as the Law of Shortsightedness. We become so absorbed in the present moment that we forget to consider the reasons behind events or the long-term consequences of our actions. This leads to a pattern of chasing quick fixes and instant gratification, without pausing to think deeply about how time will ultimately reveal the truth. As we distance ourselves from the present, our perspective broadens and the true nature of situations becomes clearer. In our fast-paced modern world, this short-sightedness is more pronounced. We are constantly bombarded with information, decisions to make, and pressures to act quickly. This sense of urgency causes us to lose sight of our long-term objectives. Instead of focusing on what truly matters, we find ourselves reacting to trivial issues, getting caught up in the heat of the moment. Our attention shifts from the bigger picture to insignificant details, and we fight battles that don't align with our ultimate goals. This distraction and impatience are at the core of the short-sightedness that prevents us from seeing clearly. To overcome this, the Stoics suggest adopting a far-sighted perspective, one that allows us to rise above the noise of the present and see things from a distance. The key is to develop a positive relationship with time, understanding that clarity often comes when we step back and reflect. This involves detaching from immediate emotional responses and resisting the urge to accept the first answer that comes to mind. Instead, we should dig deeper, consider the broader context, and focus on the long-term impact of our decisions. By doing so, we maintain a clear vision of our goals and avoid being swayed by momentary distractions. A practical example of this is seen in investing. Many investors fall prey to short-sightedness, reacting impulsively to short-term market fluctuations. They panic, sell assets during downturns, and ultimately lose money. On the other hand, successful investors take a long-term approach. They remain patient, recognizing that short-term volatility is part of the process and irrelevant to their overall strategy. By staying focused on their long-term goals, they are able to navigate the ups and downs of the market and achieve greater success in the long run. This same principle can be applied to many aspects of life, whether it's personal relationships, career decisions, or personal development. The key to overcoming short-sightedness is cultivating patience and perspective. When faced with challenges, we should avoid reacting impulsively and instead take time to reflect on the broader picture. This means asking ourselves not just how a decision impacts us today, but how it will affect us in the future. By shifting our focus from the immediate to the long term, we gain clarity and wisdom, allowing us to make better decisions that align with our true goals. 7. The Law of Defensiveness. In a highly competitive world, we instinctively build walls to protect our self-image from criticism. We all see ourselves as autonomous, intelligent, and fundamentally good, and the belief that we act out of free will shapes how we view ourselves. However, this self-perception often leads to defensiveness when challenged. We don't fear the truth as much as we fear being proven wrong or appearing less competent than we believe we are. This defensiveness can hinder communication, making it harder to persuade others. The more people feel criticized or coerced, the more they resist, even if it's not in their best interest. To overcome this, we must first acknowledge and confirm their self-opinion. By validating their sense of autonomy and intelligence, we reduce their need to defend themselves. When they feel respected, they become more open to suggestions, believing they are acting of their own accord. A key to effective persuasion is deep listening, understanding the emotions behind words. Acknowledging someone's perspective, even if it's negative, disarms defensiveness and fosters dialogue. For example, instead of confronting someone's stubbornness, say, "I see why you feel this way." This validation makes them feel heard, opening the door to productive conversation. Inspired by Stoicism, flexibility of mind helps disarm resistance. Stoics teach us not to view opinions as fixed truths but as fluid ideas open to change. By encouraging others to embrace this mental flexibility, we can gently guide them to new perspectives without triggering resistance. In practice, confirming someone's perspective, "I understand why you feel this way," lowers their guard, making them more receptive to new ideas. The Law of Defensiveness teaches us that by validating people's self-belief, we can reduce their resistance and guide them toward better outcomes, fostering collaboration instead of conflict. 8. The Law of Self-Sabotage. We are often our own worst enemy, setting barriers for ourselves through negative thinking. Our attitude shapes how we see the world and influences our actions. When we think negatively about others, they sense this energy and distance themselves. Similarly, Viewing our circumstances with pessimism makes us avoid risks, causing us to miss valuable opportunities. This pattern of self-sabotage often stems from early experiences and ingrained thought patterns. A hostile attitude can push people away, while an anxious mindset may lead to indecision and missed chances. These negative attitudes create a cycle that limits our growth and prevents us from connecting with others. The key to breaking this cycle is recognizing the influence of our attitude on our reality. By shifting from a negative mindset to a more expansive, positive one, we can transform how we perceive challenges and opportunities. Life becomes a space for exploration rather than something to fear. When we stop taking others' actions personally and view adversity as an opportunity to learn, we can better navigate obstacles. For example, someone who fears failure might avoid risks, missing out on potential success. However, if they view failure as a chance to grow, they will approach life with more confidence and resilience. This change in attitude opens doors to new opportunities and relationships. Ultimately, the root of self-sabotage lies within us. By changing our perspective, we can free ourselves from limitations. The Stoics remind us that while we cannot control external events, we can control how we respond to them. With a positive attitude, the world becomes full of possibility rather than restriction. In short, our attitude is the key to overcoming self-sabotage. By embracing challenges with curiosity and resilience, we unlock our potential, opening up a world of growth and opportunity. 9. The Law of Repression. We all wear masks to hide our darkest emotions, fearing the damage they might cause if revealed. The Law of Repression shows that each of us carries a shadow self, those feelings and traits we prefer to ignore. But when we suppress this shadow, it gains power and eventually erupts, often in uncontrollable ways. The real question is whether we are brave enough to confront this hidden part of ourselves. In modern society, there's immense pressure to present a perfect image. Social media amplifies this, encouraging us to showcase only the best parts of ourselves. Yet behind the mask, we struggle with anger, jealousy, fear, and insecurity. These hidden emotions inevitably find their way to the surface through outbursts or passive-aggressive behavior. Repressing them only deepens the internal conflict. However, instead of fearing these darker emotions, we can confront and integrate them. By acknowledging the shadow, we gain control over it. This process requires self-honesty, but it allows us to transform negative emotions into positive energy. Anger becomes passion, fear turns into caution, and ambition becomes motivation. Embracing this complexity makes us more authentic and whole. Hiding behind masks, whether as the tough guy, the saint, or the achiever, only prolongs inner conflict. Eventually, the pressure builds, leading to destructive behaviors. The key is to understand these emotions as part of the human experience and to integrate them into our lives. When we accept our shadow, we also begin to see through the masks others wear, realizing that everyone battles with their own fears and weaknesses. True strength comes from this authenticity, from embracing our shadow and growing stronger because of it. The Law of Repression teaches us that avoiding the shadow leads to chaos, while confronting it allows us to live a life of freedom and truth. Will you continue hiding behind a mask, or will you face your shadow and become the person you were meant to be? 10. The Law of Envy. In modern society, envy is a powerful and dangerous emotion. We constantly compare ourselves to others, measuring our success, talents, and achievements against theirs. While some people turn these comparisons into motivation, many fall into the trap of deep envy. This emotion doesn't just harm the person feeling it, but it can also damage relationships, especially in friendships. To protect yourself from envy, it's essential to recognize the signs and build a strong sense of self-esteem, so you don't constantly feel the need to measure yourself against others. Envy often manifests in subtle ways through fleeting glances, backhanded compliments, or gossip. The people who harbor envy come in different forms: the leveler, who tries to bring others down; the self-entitled slacker, who believes they deserve more without putting in the effort; and the status fiend or attacher, who seeks validation through others. These people might not always be obvious, but their behavior speaks volumes, and it can be toxic if left unchecked. Triggers for envy are often tied to sudden changes in status, natural talents, or the success of others, particularly in situations where society imposes additional pressure like the success of women in a competitive environment. When we see others achieve what we haven't, it can spark a feeling of inadequacy that leads to envy. If not managed, this envy can turn into negative actions like backbiting, manipulative behavior, or passive-aggressive praise. To rise above envy, it's important to change your perspective. Rather than resenting those who have what you desire, try moving closer to them. Learn from their success and let it inspire you. Another helpful tactic is downward comparison. Reflecting on those who have less can help you appreciate your own accomplishments. Practicing Mitfreud or being genuinely happy for someone else's success can shift envy into admiration and a source of inspiration. By turning envy into a desire to emulate greatness, you can control your emotions and grow rather than be consumed by bitterness. Ultimately, envy can either fuel your growth or poison your relationships. The choice is yours. Will you let envy drive you to improve, or will you allow it to hold you back? 11. The Law of Grandiosity. The Law of Grandiosity speaks to a universal human tendency. When we experience success, we often credit ourselves alone, forgetting the roles that luck, timing, and other people have played. This inflated sense of self can lead us to believe that we are exceptional or even invincible. On the other hand, when we fail, we rarely attribute the failure to ourselves, instead blaming external forces. This distorted perspective creates a disconnect from reality, making it easy to fall into the trap of grandiosity, a dangerous overconfidence that blinds us to our limits. In a world driven by competition and achievement, the temptation of grandiosity is strong. Success can inflate our ego, making us believe that our accomplishments are entirely self-made. However, the Stoic philosophy offers a counterpoint to this. True wisdom comes from recognizing the complex web of factors that contribute to any achievement. It's not just about individual effort. Success also requires support, circumstance, and timing. Forgetting this balance can lead to arrogance, poor decision-making, and ultimately failure. Great leaders often succumb to this illusion, believing they are destined to break the mold and rewrite the rules. They convince themselves that they have a unique touch and become blind to the risks around them. However, there's a distinction between fantastical grandiosity, rooted in delusion, and practical grandiosity, which is grounded in reality. Practical grandiosity, as the Stoics suggest, is not about rejecting ambition, but about channeling it through self-awareness and humility. It requires a constant dialogue with reality, acknowledging both our strengths and our limitations. To cultivate this grounded perspective, we must continuously check ourselves, ensuring that we remain in touch with the truth. It's about recognizing that no success is solely our own and understanding that external factors always play a role. This approach allows us to strive for greatness without falling into the trap of believing we are invincible. Consider a successful entrepreneur. At the peak of their career, they may be tempted to believe their vision and work alone brought them success. However, the wise entrepreneur recognizes the importance of their team, market conditions, and even luck in achieving their goals. This awareness keeps them humble and grounded, helping them avoid the arrogance that can lead to reckless decisions. The law of grandiosity serves as a reminder that unchecked ego leads to dangerous delusions. By remaining humble and acknowledging the external factors that contribute to our success, we can achieve greatness without falling into self-deception. The question is, will we embrace humility, or will we let grandiosity cloud our judgment? 12. The Law of Gender Rigidity. We all possess both masculine and feminine qualities, shaped by genetics, society, and the influence of our parent of the opposite sex. However, from an early age, we are often pressured to suppress the qualities that don't align with societal expectations. Men are encouraged to be strong, decisive, and unemotional, while women are expected to be nurturing and passive. This suppression causes us to lose vital traits that could make us more complete. The masculine and feminine are not opposites but complementary, and by reconnecting with the repressed side of ourselves, we become more flexible and authentic. Gender roles are deeply ingrained in our culture, limiting us by denying our full potential. Men who repress their feminine side may struggle with emotional awareness, while women who suppress masculine traits may find it difficult to assert themselves. Carl Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine within men, and the animus, the masculine within women. In moments of love or emotional intensity, these repressed traits often emerge unconsciously, influencing our behavior. But these qualities should be integrated, not just during extreme emotions, but in everyday life. Breaking free from rigid gender expectations means recognizing that these traits are human, not tied strictly to gender. Masculine qualities like decisiveness and logic, and feminine traits like emotional awareness and empathy, are valuable for everyone. By embracing both, we gain the flexibility to shift between strength and compassion, reason and intuition, depending on what life requires. A man who embraces his emotional side, for instance, doesn't lose his strength, rather, he becomes more compassionate and effective as a leader. A woman who embraces assertiveness gains confidence while retaining her nurturing nature. This integration of both masculine and feminine qualities leads to a more adaptable and complete self, allowing us to navigate life's challenges with balance. The Stoic call for self-awareness urges us to reflect on who we are beyond societal expectations. By embracing the full range of our masculine and feminine qualities, we become more complete individuals, capable of approaching life with both strength and empathy. Only by breaking free from the rigidity of gender roles can we achieve true personal growth and flexibility. 13. The Law of Aimlessness. Humans, unlike animals, lack instincts to guide them, so we must consciously take control of our lives. However, many of us allow societal pressures or fleeting emotions to dictate our actions, leading us to wander aimlessly. This often results in a deep sense of dissatisfaction and even depression because we haven't found our true purpose. Instead, we chase superficial desires like money, fame, or pleasure, which may provide temporary satisfaction but ultimately leave us feeling empty. This lack of direction creates inner conflict. We feel something is wrong but don't know how to change course. Society encourages us to pursue false purposes, such as material success or attention, but these pursuits never lead to lasting fulfillment. Instead, they leave us more disconnected from ourselves and the world around us. To break free from this cycle, we must discover a deeper sense of purpose, something that gives our lives true meaning. When we find this purpose, every decision becomes easier, and adversity is easier to face. A clear purpose serves as a compass, helping us navigate life's challenges with confidence and clarity. We stop wasting time on hollow goals and focus on what truly matters. Consider the difference between someone who chases material success and someone who has found their calling. The first may achieve wealth or fame but feels unfulfilled, while the latter finds joy in their work, regardless of external rewards. A sense of purpose makes us resilient and keeps us moving forward, even in tough times. To escape aimlessness, we must resist the temptation of false purposes and focus on discovering what truly resonates with us. This requires deep reflection and the courage to let go of empty pursuits. Once we find our purpose, we can set meaningful goals and live a life of intention, finding joy in the journey rather than the destination. As Stoic philosophy teaches, while we cannot control external events, we can control how we respond. Living with purpose allows us to transcend distractions and focus on what truly matters. The law of aimlessness reminds us that only through purpose can we find fulfillment and meaning in our lives. 14. The Law of Conformity. The Law of Conformity reveals a powerful truth about human nature. We are rarely our true selves when in a group. Instead, we adopt the values, behaviors, and emotions of those around us, often without realizing it. We conform to the group's morals, speak its language, and act in ways that align with its collective identity. In doing so, we risk losing our individuality, becoming mere reflections of the group's dynamics. The drive to fit in is strong, rooted in our need for acceptance and fear of rejection. Yet this conformity comes with a cost: the erosion of personal autonomy and rationality. In groups, we take risks we would never consider alone, and our emotions become entangled with the collective mood, leading to decisions driven more by impulse than by reason. In a world where belonging to a group is seen as essential, from social circles to professional organizations, it's easy to overlook how this dynamic subtly shapes our thoughts and actions. The pressure to conform is often invisible, yet its effects are profound. We become part of the group's culture, follow its unspoken rules, and adopt its values without questioning them. We mimic the behavior of others, taking comfort in the security of sameness. This is emotional contagion at work when we absorb the emotions of the group and feel them as our own. This need to conform can make us hyper-certain of our actions, leading us to take unnecessary risks or make poor decisions simply because everyone else is doing it. The Stoics teach us to resist this downward pull. We must become conscious of how the groups we belong to influence us and learn to observe our behavior within them. Each group operates by certain unwritten rules and power dynamics, and within these dynamics, individuals play specific roles. There is the gatekeeper, the stirrer of trouble, the shadow enabler, the jester, and the punching bag. These roles maintain the group's structure, but also stifle individual thought and action. By recognizing how we unconsciously slip into these roles, we can start to reclaim our sense of self. We need to ask ourselves how we behave in different groups and whether we are acting out of personal conviction or simply following the crowd. True strength, the Stoics argue, comes from maintaining our individuality in the face of this pressure. To achieve this, we must become more aware of our tendencies to conform. Rather than blindly follow the group's lead, we can choose to stand apart, think independently, and act rationally. Groups are not inherently bad, but their influence can be subtle and corrosive if we are not vigilant. A reality-based group, one that encourages open dialogue, transparency, and the free flow of ideas, can foster individual growth while maintaining collective purpose. This is the type of group worth belonging to, a group that builds rather than diminishes the individual. 15. The Law of Fickleness. Leadership is a delicate balance of power and perception. People naturally have mixed feelings about authority. They desire freedom but also seek guidance. This creates a tension where followers admire their leader but may also resent them. A successful leader understands this ambivalence and finds ways to inspire loyalty without causing resistance. To achieve this, leaders must appear strong, legitimate, and fair. Building authority takes time, practice, and careful attention to human nature. At the heart of effective leadership is authenticity. A leader must find their unique style, one that feels genuine and resonates with their followers. Authenticity ensures that leadership isn't forced or artificial. Moreover, leaders need to adopt an outward focus, showing concern for those they lead, rather than being self-centered. A clear vision, or third eye, helps leaders anticipate challenges and lead with confidence. Leading from the front with strength and purpose creates an aura that commands respect and stirs conflicting emotions, which, when handled well, can foster deep loyalty. True leadership also involves giving, not taking. A leader should always appear to provide support, strength, and inspiration, never coming across as demanding or self-serving. This generosity fosters respect and trust among followers, making them want to follow rather than feel obligated. Maintaining authority is an ongoing process. Leaders must continuously rejuvenate themselves, staying adaptable and open to change. They must cultivate their inner authority, striving to contribute to the culture and time they live in. By focusing on their unique strengths and adhering to high standards, they not only command respect but also inspire those around them to achieve greatness. Ultimately, leadership is an art that requires constant attention to both one's own development and the emotional needs of others. To be a leader that people willingly follow, you must project both strength and generosity, earning respect while inspiring loyalty. 16. The Law of Aggression. Have you ever noticed how some people, who seem calm and pleasant, hide deeper feelings of frustration and aggression? Many of us prefer to think of ourselves as peaceful and kind, but underneath, we all have a desire to control and manipulate. This often shows up as passive-aggressive behavior. Recognizing these signs in others and in ourselves can help us navigate relationships better and use that energy positively, like in our work. In everyday life, we meet people who seem easygoing, but subtle signs of aggression are often there. It could be a coworker who's always late to meetings, showing their superiority, or someone who constantly plays the victim to gain sympathy. These actions are rooted in feelings of helplessness and the need for control. Instead of expressing these emotions directly, people often repress them, creating tension that appears in passive-aggressive ways. The desire for control and frustration doesn't always surface openly. Some people subtly manipulate or make you question yourself. For example, they may shift blame or make you dependent on them. Recognizing this behavior is crucial because if left unchecked, it can ruin relationships and exhaust you emotionally. However, understanding these dynamics can help you protect yourself from manipulation and channel your own frustration into something productive. Imagine a friend who's always late or a colleague who constantly seeks sympathy. These small actions may seem trivial, but they reveal deeper issues of power and control. So how do we handle this? The key is not to suppress aggression, but to channel it into something constructive, like work or personal goals. Controlled aggression, when mixed with ambition and persistence, can become a force for success. Aggression doesn't have to be destructive. If directed properly, it can fuel your drive toward achieving your goals. The question isn't whether you feel aggression, but how you use it. By mastering our own aggressive tendencies, we can transform them into positive change, achieving success without letting these emotions harm our lives or relationships. 17. The Law of Generational Myopia. Each generation believes it stands at the peak of human progress. Yet it is only when we look back that we realize we were confined by the limitations of our time. Born into a world shaped by the ideas of our era, we absorb its values during childhood and often resist the new beliefs of the generation that follows. This phenomenon, known as generational myopia, describes our inability to see beyond the narrow worldview we inherit. As we grow up, the norms and beliefs of our generation subtly shape how we view the world. These ideas become ingrained, and it seems as though the world remains unchanged. However, change is constant. As we age, we often fail to recognize how much has shifted socially, culturally, and technologically until we pause and reflect. We cling to what we know, resistant to the evolving world around us. History shows a clear pattern. The first generation often leads a revolution, breaking away from the traditions of the past to build something new. The next generation seeks stability, craving order after the upheaval. The third generation is pragmatic, focused on solving problems and living comfortably. But by the time the fourth generation arrives, dissatisfaction with the status quo begins to grow. They question the norms, igniting the spark for the next revolutionary change. This cycle repeats itself through the ages. The trap of generational myopia lies in believing that our way of thinking is the final word. The ideas that once felt revolutionary will inevitably grow outdated. To avoid this trap, we must remain open to new perspectives, willing to adapt as the world continues to change. Instead of clinging to past beliefs, we should embrace the innovation and ideas emerging from younger generations. Take, for example, the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s. The youth of that era, rejecting the rigid norms of their parents, sparked a wave of change that reshaped society. What was once radical became mainstream. This cycle of change is constant, and by recognizing it, we can better position ourselves to adapt and grow. In the end, overcoming generational myopia requires acknowledging that we are not as different from past generations as we may believe. Just as they did, we will face new challenges that require fresh thinking. By keeping an open mind and embracing these shifts, we ensure continued growth. The world will change whether we accept it or not. The question is, will we be ready to adapt, or will we remain stuck in our own limited view? Generational myopia limits our ability to see beyond the present. Recognizing this blind spot is the first step toward embracing new possibilities. Change is inevitable, and by opening ourselves up to it, we can break the cycle and ensure a future where we continue to evolve. 18. The Law of Death Denial. We can run from many things in life, but no one can escape death. Yet most people avoid thinking about death, not only because of fear, but also due to the discomfort it brings. Modern society often steers clear of discussing death, making it a distant and awkward subject. However, the undeniable truth is that we will all face it someday. This creates a paradox. The more we avoid death, the more we miss opportunities to live a truly meaningful life. Those who have faced death closely often come out with a sharper awareness of life's value. They stop delaying what matters and instead live with urgency and purpose. Being conscious of death isn't about generating fear, it's about awakening to life. By regularly reflecting on the finite nature of life, we can discover a deeper sense of purpose and gain the drive to achieve our goals. Death isn't something to be avoided, it's a reminder that life is precious and short. When people accept that life is fleeting, they begin to live more authentically and fully. Ancient philosophers like Socrates and religions such as Buddhism have long emphasized the importance of contemplating death. They believe that only by confronting mortality can we live a meaningful life. To overcome the fear and denial of death, we should start by meditating on the shared mortality of all people. Everyone around you, including yourself, will eventually die, and that's a natural, unavoidable part of life. Instead of avoiding this truth, let it serve as a wake-up call that helps you live with clear purpose and accomplish what truly matters. Thinking about death is not a negative act, it's a way to awaken a sense of urgency in life. If you've been avoiding the thought of death, face it today. Don't wait, start living with intention and begin transforming your life now. Only then can you live the full, meaningful life you truly desire. As we wrap up this video, remember that understanding the laws of human nature goes beyond just learning, it's about changing how we approach life. By recognizing these forces within ourselves and others, we can reshape our behavior, strengthen relationships, and see things in a new light. The path to a more fulfilling life is about using this awareness to make better choices, guided by our higher selves instead of our instincts. Take what you've learned and see how it can help you live with more clarity, empathy, and purpose. If you enjoyed this video, please comment with a 1, share it, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on living with intention.